Journal, or welcome to WJ. I already screwed up. I am so bad at being the lead host. All right, starting over.
You got this. That
Hello, welcome to WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. I'm Michael Austin, a supervising reporter for the Western Journal. Today, I'm joined by Grant Atkinson, my brand new peon, member of the reporting team. I'm just going to bully him throughout this episode because I get to do that because I'm his boss.
Hazing, yes.
And Joey Chester of the assignment team, our star assignment editor, who is just blowing up our site right now. We have a lot of good stuff to talk about today, guys.
Yeah.
We got obviously more Afghanistan news. The Biden disaster continues, which, you know, horrible for America. We don't like it, but it's been pretty good for our page views and for our site. So
Yeah,
we'll
people are interested at least. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but
Biden's been really boring up until he decided to destroy the country. We got news about that. We got news about some stuff happening here at home. More CRT drama. You know, so many Americans are suffering and dying overseas to protect our freedoms, and back home we have lefties that are just willing to throw them away.
Exactly.
But we're going to start it out with Biden continuing to mishandle this whole Afghanistan situation.
Yeah, so we have breaking news. I mean, just in the last 10 minutes, the U.S. has officially pulled out of Afghanistan. The war has ended. But just, what was it? When did the suicide bombings happen? Was that yesterday? Or was that last week?
It was last week.
It was last week, the end of last week. 13 U.S. service people died. It was horrible. The suicide bombing of ISIS-K. Well, their bodies came back to the United States over the weekend, which traditionally happens, and the president receives those bodies. It is tradition. Trump did it. Other presidents have done it. And Joe Biden did it, and he did something pretty disrespectful while this ceremony was happening. I'd like to show you guys exactly what Biden did.
Who was one of the 2 female Marines who were killed among the 13. She was the one who posted that Instagram post holding the baby saying, "I love my job," just a few days ago.
Biden was really sly with what he did. He really thought he could get away with the quick glance at his watch. I mean, you're the president. You were at one of the most somber moments, and all you can think about is checking your watch as to what you have to do next. Yeah. I mean, you can make the argument that there's a hurricane going on. There's other things, but he's president. What's he going to do about a hurricane?
Right.
The most important thing facing him is 13 dead U.S. service members at the hands of him. And all he can do is check his watch. It was incredibly disrespectful. So following that ceremony, Biden met, or was supposed to meet, with a Gold Star family. And most of the family members actually walked out of the room when it was time to meet Joe Biden. And one of the family's members actually met with Biden and said that he was shallow, and the meeting only lasted 2 minutes, and it was just a complete disaster. They felt like Biden was not genuine. He didn't really care. Super short meeting. And Biden has just been blasted by family members of these fallen soldiers, which I think is really fascinating to see. You know, he's the commander in chief, and the family members of these dead service members are just so angry at Joe Biden. Why do you guys think that there's such an angry response from family members of the servicemen and women who have died?
Well, he just doesn't. It doesn't seem like he wants to take responsibility. It doesn't seem like he cares in the slightest. This just seems to him like, it seems like he feels like this is just another roadblock that he just has to get around, and then once he's done with it, he can move on. And the dismissiveness that he's shown at funerals and stuff, you know, we all know that Trump is just a classic narcissist, and he only ever talks about himself. But, you know, go back, watch videos of Trump talking to the families of fallen soldiers, watch videos of him at military funerals. His tone takes a drastic shift. He doesn't make it about himself. He makes it about the families. He says nice things. He doesn't come off like this. Trump is more respectful than Biden when it comes to, you know, fallen soldiers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the thing that would make me angry, and I'm assuming what is probably angering some of these families, is just his dismissive attitude. I mean, there's really no way that Joe Biden can avoid the fact that this is, at least in part, we could argue about how much, but at least in some part, these deaths are due to Joe Biden and his actions. We can argue all day about what could have happened, what could have gone differently, but the reality of the situation is if Biden had not botched the withdrawal in the way that he did, these people would not have died. And so I think that when you're a president, when you're anyone who is responsible for a death, whether it's on accident, on purpose, whatever, you need to be remorseful. You need to be sorrowful. It seems like just such an obvious thing to say. And you don't see that from Biden. We hear them saying he's shallow, he's dismissive. Like, I just don't understand how you can look somebody in the face who you are at least partially responsible for the death of their family member and not feel like truly sorrowful, remorseful. It's cold to me.
And it's not, this dismissiveness is not isolated to how he's been treating the families.
No.
Like, early on, you have reporters asking him, well, when are we going to get updates on the deaths and when we're leaving? And he just laughs it off and says, hey, you'll be the first one to know.
Yeah.
Like, he needs to take
Knock
this
on
seriously.
wood.
Yeah,
On
wood. Yeah.
Yeah, it always seems like Joe Biden has better things to do. Like he's always, this doesn't matter. I've got better things to do. Over the weekend, he was speaking at FEMA headquarters, and someone asked him about Afghanistan. He slammed his hands down on the podium and said, "I'm not talking about Afghanistan."
Yeah,
like 13 members of our military just died, and you have better things to do than talk about that. I mean, to quote Joe Biden, come on, man.
Come on, man.
I mean, so the best quote that I think really sums this up actually came from one of the Marine sisters. It's actually one of the sisters' family members that refused to meet with Biden. She said, "You can't F up as bad as he did and say you're sorry." And I think that so perfectly sums up what's happened. You can't mess up as much as Joe Biden did and then just say, "Oh, I'm sorry about it. I botched the withdrawal. I put Americans in danger, but yeah, I'm sorry." No, you can't. It is not excusable. So I think this is going to keep hurting Joe Biden. We don't know how many Americans are trapped behind enemy lines right now. There could be hundreds, thousands still left. We don't know. I don't think Joe Biden knows. I don't think Joe Biden cares.
Well, we don't know if these recent drone strikes claimed any, what lives they claimed. Was it any Americans? Was it actually ISIS terrorists like they say?
That's the other thing. There's, I think, 7 dead children because of Joe Biden's strikes supposedly against ISIS-K. It's a disaster. I think we're going to see this keep happening. This just angry response from Americans towards Joe Biden. Michael, there's been some really horrifying scenes from Afghanistan, some heartbreaking scenes. Can you talk about some of that, please?
Yeah. So the Taliban, as much as Psaki and Biden want to say that, well, the Taliban's bad, but we can work with them and we're going to make sure that they, treat people responsibly and they take women's rights seriously.
Yeah.
What a joke. But they can say that all they want, but the people living in Afghan, they know the horror that it is to live under the Taliban. And they're doing everything they can, not just to get out, but to get their children out. And so we have seen numerous examples, images, reports, videos of the parents of newborn children taking their babies and trying to, pass them over a fence covered in barbed wire to U.S. soldiers just to give them a chance of surviving. We have an image. This is probably the most famous image that has been taken so far of parents passing their children over the fencing. And it is just horrific. I mean, that kid made it over okay, but according to some reporting we have done from talking to someone that was inside Kabul airport, not all the kids have made it. Some of them have been caught up in that barbed wire fencing up there, and I don't even want to imagine the types of horrors that preceded that. We have reports of this happening with U.S. soldiers taking in infant children from parents. We have this happening with UK soldiers. We have reports of just soldiers just weeping relentlessly after seeing what they had to see, after having mothers beg them, please take our children, as Taliban soldiers are beating them and all of this craziness. And another one of the more shocking images we've seen is of a Marine who is holding an infant at Kabul airport. She posted it on Instagram. She said, "Kabul, Afghanistan, I love my job. Then less than a week later, she was one of the 13 service members to die in the bombings. Nicole G, I believe, was her name. Yep, Nicole G. So,
And how old was she?
She was 23 years old, so younger than me, which is it's. And a lot of the service members that have died have been under 23. There's been some 20-year-olds. It's been
people
crazy
who were super young or maybe not even alive yet when 9/11 happened.
Yes.
What started
Yes.
this war?
Yeah, and it's clear. We're trying to negotiate. We're trying to work with these with these terrorists while they're inspiring such fear, such terror in the people that have to live under them that they're risking the lives of their children. They're passing them over razor wire fences just to escape this regime. Could you even imagine something more horrific coming out of this? I mean, other than deaths and the site of the bombing was another example of something like that. But just this is incredible what we're seeing.
Yeah, I really can't imagine much worse than this. I can't imagine how people who are there, who are experiencing this, or at least were, we don't know what the exact situation is now. We're hearing reports that we have completely pulled out, so maybe it's better now, maybe it's not. But just over this past week, this weekend, I can't imagine what it would have been like to be there, to experience these things. As you said, we talked to someone who's on the ground working for an NGO, and he was just detailing to me how horrible it is. I said, is it as dangerous as we might believe that it is? And he said, oh, it's more dangerous. It's more horrific than you could imagine. It's worse than the media would even portray. And I think when you see images of children being passed like this, when you see how desperate these parents are, to me, what that tells me is just how ruthless and how evil the Taliban is, the people who are there, the people who we have said we're going to negotiate with, the people who over and over again Jen Psaki has defended, saying that we're gonna negotiate with these people. We don't have any other choice. We're going to talk to them about letting our Americans out. These people are terrible, horrible, extremist people who they burn people alive. They hang people from trees. I mean, I talked to the same guy. He told me that he's seen them throw people who are gay off the roof for being gay. Yeah, just terrible, terrible crimes. And we somehow think that we're just able to just appease them, negotiate with them. Like it's just impossible. And I think when you see an image like this, you realize the people on the ground understand that. Yeah. And if we don't understand that here, then we need to make it more known because it's bad.
And that source is former Special Operations Officer Tim Kennedy, MMA star. He's now working with NGO to get people out, like you said. But Biden has put us in a situation, Joey, where we have to count on these people to protect us. These Taliban soldiers, these people that women are sacrificing their lives. They're putting their children in harm's way just to get a chance of escaping. If the pullout hadn't been so drastic, if Biden had taken a more measured approach, we would not have to be working alongside the Taliban. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we have any other choice right now.
Right. So actually, a story came out today. It's been revealed. I think it was actually buried inside an article, which these stories often are because they're so bad for Biden that the mainstream media doesn't want people to see him. The Taliban actually offered to give the U.S. control of the Kabul airport until August 31st. So they would have full control of Kabul, no interference from Taliban, anything. They offered to give us that control. Joe Biden denied it. And then we were forced to work with the Taliban. We gave them control of Kabul. We gave them control of the airport. And that's why we see images like the ones you just showed of families trying to push their young children, their babies, over a barbed wire fence. I mean, it does say a lot about these families. I mean, they're willing to risk their lives to save their children. I mean, they don't care about themselves. They don't care if they die at the hands of the Taliban. They just want their babies to be rescued. But the Taliban are ruthless people, and it is just so sickening to me that Biden thought the best plan was to rely on the Taliban to get Americans out, to get Afghan allies out, to rely on the Taliban for security.
Right.
That security allowed ISIS-K suicide bombers to kill 13 Americans. I mean, it's so frustrating. It's infuriating. Today, there are videos of Taliban flying U.S. Black Hawk
Oh my
helicopters with people hanging from their throats being flown around Afghanistan. I mean, these are the people that Joe Biden trusted.
I believe the reporting is that the Taliban now has more attack helicopters than 85% of of military
Yes,
forces.
they have one of the
whole world.
largest air forces
Yeah.
in the world now. Yeah, and we trust those people. We gave them that
Yes.
equipment. It's
Yeah.
so infuriating.
And
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it can't be overstated how extremist and how radical the Taliban
These
is.
are
I
bad
feel
people.
like this point has been so watered down by the mainstream media, by just people trying to defend Joe Biden's actions. It's like, I feel like 2 or 3 weeks ago, before this whole thing started, you asked somebody the Taliban, they would have said yeah, those are terrible people. Now it's like the reporting the last 3 weeks, it's like, oh, they're not so bad. Like we've tried to soften the image of them. It's crazy.
It's shocking.
Part of the campaign that the Taliban has been putting out there is that, oh no, we are a new regime. We're a more moderate regime. We do care about women, even though they're threatening the lives of any women that sought to give themselves an education while the Afghan government was in rule. But they've been putting forward that narrative that they are somehow more moderate. And of course, establishment media, the Biden administration, that narrative is helpful to them because it doesn't make them look as bad when they have to work with the Taliban against ISIS.
Right.
So it's just crazy. And, the one last thing I would like to get out of this story is that, the images of the babies being pushed over these fences, it's very reminiscent of what we saw at the very beginning of all this.
Yeah.
When people were clinging to airplanes, they were then falling off to their deaths, and I think one of them was like a really young soccer star or something
That's
like that.
correct, yeah.
He was possibly a teenager, maybe his early 20s. But just horrifying. And there was a journalist that is native to that region that was basically talking about, look, this may look insane, this may look like these people are irrational, but if you knew what it was like to live under Taliban rule, everything you are seeing right now you would consider to be 100% rational.
Wow.
And just that idea in and of itself is so shocking. And we don't live in a place like that, despite the left telling us over and over and over again that we are one of the most oppressed countries in the world, that we oppress minorities to the benefit of white Americans, and that this is just a horrible place to live, and that we need to completely restructure society. While we have U.S. troops dying in Afghanistan to protect those freedoms, we have elementary school teachers, we have middle school teachers, we have teachers in the U.S. teaching children the kind of values that are going to have this country end up in a place like Afghanistan is in down the road.
Yeah, it's really sad to see a story like this come out during a time when we're seeing Americans sacrificing their lives. We're seeing people like Tim Kennedy, even if they're not active military, being willing to go over there and rescue Americans, be able to rescue our Afghan allies who are in trouble. Meanwhile, back home, we just have some of the most embarrassing things you could imagine going on. Some things that, they're laughable in a sense, but they're also not laughable because it's very disturbing that they can be going on here and that it's happening. But particularly what I'm talking about right now is this video that kind of went viral over the weekend. We did a story on it here at the Western Journal. It's a woman who is a teacher. Her name is Kristen Pitson. She goes on TikTok by the name of @Mrs. Gillingsworth. Or I should say she did go on TikTok. Now she has deleted her TikTok due to the backlash from this video that we're about to show you.
Yeah.
But basically, she was explaining to her TikTok followers why she doesn't feel like it's necessary for her students to have an American flag in their room to say the Pledge of Allegiance, because she's got a better solution that she can give us. So we have a video here that she can explain that to us, what she's saying.
Okay, so during third period, we have announcements and they do the Pledge of Allegiance. I always tell my class, stand if you feel like it, don't stand if you feel like it, say the words if you want, don't have to say the words. So my class decided to stand but not say the words. totally fine. Except for the fact that my room does not have a flag. It used to be there, but I took it down during COVID because it made me uncomfortable. And I packed it away and I don't know where, and I haven't found it yet. But my kid today goes, hey, it's kind of weird that we just stand and then, we say it to nothing. And I'm like, oh, well, I gotta find it. Like, I'm working on it. I got you. In the meantime, I tell this kid, we do have a flag in the class that you can pledge your allegiance to. And he looks around and he goes, oh, that one?
I don't like her.
I'm not a fan either.
Where's her mask? Isn't she a child murderer?
Okay, I've got a lot of things to break down.
Yeah.
Oh
about
my
that.
goodness, that was a lot.
First of all,
funny.
Wow.
she is just like the type of person that if I saw them on the street, I'd be like, oh my goodness, I need to go to the other side of the street. I just would not want to have a conversation with that person.
The
You could
liberal
tell-
just
yeah,
oozes
you could-
from her. Yes.
I don't like to judge a book based on its cover, but you can
You
when
can
you
tell.
see a person like that, you can tell that they're the kind of person who would tell their children that they should pledge allegiance to the gay pride flag.
Goodness.
So she's just an unlikable person, but more than that, she's laughing about this
she's
whole
so
thing.
giddy about
it's
it.
so
Oh my
funny
goodness.
that she's telling her children that they should be pledging allegiance.
I think that bothers me the most.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just some little game.
It's funny.
She's destroying these children's minds is what she's really doing, and she's acting like it's a game, and so it's just really disturbing to me.
The flag bothered her.
Right. That part too. She's like, oh, it made me uncomfortable. It's like, oh, if you're uncomfortable, then maybe you should leave because that's our flag. So
flag.
And then I guess she was forced to delete her account.
yes, she was forced to delete her account. There's a quote in the story we wrote. It says, quote, this is coming from Annette Franco, the public relations officer for the school district where she teaches. And it says, quote, we are aware of this incident and are investigating. While we do not discuss employee-related matters, we can tell you that showing respect and honor for our nation's flag is a value that we instill in our students and an expectation of our employees. We take matters like this seriously and will be taking action to address it. So she has been not reprimanded yet, but she may be reprimanded. I guess the first question I just want to pose to you guys is, how did this, aside from the whole gay pride thing, aside from all that, because that's disturbing in itself, and we can get into that, trying to force that on children. But just the idea of taking an American flag down because it's offensive, how did this sentiment of anti-Americanism just become so prevalent? How do we let this happen?
Well, that explanation could be 3 hours long.
Yes.
but
You could have a whole special 3-part episode on that.
I mean, slowly over the course of time, through
Yeah.
academia, these ideas have bubbled over, kind of Marxist-like ideas that came up in the Frankfurt School. We all know the story of critical theories and critical race theory and all that basically just says America is irredeemable.
Yes.
And you need to destroy everything and build it back up as a socialist utopia. That's the only way to really fix everything. But I could just imagine, I know exactly what the headlines from left-wing outlets are going to be about this. Republicans pounce.
Oh, yes.
Or cancel
Yes.
culture hypocrisy.
Yes.
Or just ridiculous. She did this to herself.
Mm-hmm.
There is no one to blame for this but herself.
No.
That's crazy. She does not. This is the left. The other thing about this, Grant, is that the left, their whole philosophy is about imposing their worldview onto others.
Right.
And that's exactly, that's why so many of them want to be teachers, is because they don't want to actually help students learn to process and use critical thinking. They want to indoctrinate them and make them these little left-wing activists.
And
that
children
they
are
can send
such an
out.
easy target for that
Oh,
sort of
yeah,
thing.
Absolutely.
Of course they
Yeah.
are. Yeah. There is one flag in the country that represents all people, all races, all
LGBT?
yes,
Believe it or not.
whether we agree with it or not.
Even people like this woman who
Yes,
hates the country,
she
and
is
actually still
represent-
represents her.
Yes, the American flag is the most inclusive flag. It is not the LGBT flag. It's not the transgender flag. It's not whatever. whatever other flags they come up with. It's the American flag. That's the most inclusive flag in America. That's what baffles me all the time. They're like, well, this flag is more inclusive. Well, we had to add a color to this flag to make it more inclusive. We already have a flag.
No, that proves it's never been inclusive enough.
Yes, you can never be as inclusive as the American flag is. It is impossible. So this drives me insane.
It does. I guess the next question I wanted to ask you guys is more just broad. I want to say, just first of all, this quote where they say that, we can tell you that showing respect and honor for our nation's flag is a value we instill in our students, expectation for our employees. First of all, I don't believe them.
I don't believe
them at all.
Absolutely not.
I don't think they instill that in their students
No way.
in the least, and I don't think that that's something that they ask in an interview question for a teacher. Obviously, it's not.
This wouldn't have been happening, I don't think, if that's really what they believed. I mean, I'm sure students talked about this outside the classroom and it's probably well known. I mean, if she's been doing this for months and she took the flag down during COVID, that was a year ago. It's not like this is new. She's just been caught this time.
Yeah, exactly.
And so now the schools say something. If they really believed what they've said in this statement, they would have stopped it a long time ago.
Right. So here's my question. I don't believe them. I don't believe that she'll get punished. I feel like if she does get punished, it doesn't matter because one, the left will jump on it, like you said, and it will be, we canceled her.
Yeah.
And also, she's already done the damage to these children. She's already put this idea in their head. Even if she is reprimanded, even if these parents of these children say, this was wrong, like this already happened. They were forced to pledge allegiance to the gay pride flag. And so my question is, what do we do? How can we address this kind of thing in classrooms around America? That's actually a meaningful way that we can fix this problem.
And this was a public school.
This was a public school, yes.
Okay. Well, first off, that can never happen at a public school.
No.
The one thing we need is more accountability for these teachers, which is starting to happen quite a bit. It's been amazing to see how parents have responded to critical race theory, how they've gotten it out of their schools, how they've fought back against it, and that momentum has followed into sort of the LGBT kind of indoctrination that we're seeing as well. There's been a lot of parent pushback that's been really encouraging. So continue that forward. But also, I think in terms of accountability, we were talking in the office earlier today about just like we have with police officers having maybe not body cams, but like cameras in the classroom. So
absolutely.
Anytime a parent wants to, they can watch any class period and they can see everything that happened. And the freedom of religion right that's given to us in the Constitution, that's not just the freedom of us to express our own religion. That's the freedom of us to not have a religion forced onto us by the state. And a religion isn't just a belief in God or this or that. It's a worldview that dictates morality. I mean, that's how the founders intended it, and that includes wokeness and social justice ideology. We have a right to not have our kids be taught this stuff in public schools, and there's been plenty of legal foundations and associations of that sort that have been fighting against that, using that exact argument, and we just need to continue those efforts, and we need to just eradicate. You know what? Okay, so you can't indoctrinate kids with Christian values. I can accept that. But you also can't indoctrinate them with secular values. Secular is not neutral. And unfortunately, that's what America has kind of decided is true.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't want to take your time, Joey. I'll go to you in just a second. I just want to
Come on, man.
I just want to say,
You lying dog-faced pony soldier.
I just want to respond quickly to what Michael said. I think that as a conservative Christian, I am someone who is in favor of separation of church and state because it's, as soon as you have a non-Christian leader, then you're having another religion force. So I'm very pro separation of church and state. I understand not being able to teach, Jesus, teach not biblical values, but teach like the Bible, force Christianity on students. I understand not being able to do that.
Yeah.
At the same time, how can you say that that's allowed or that's not allowed, but then this kind of woke ideology is allowed?
I have probably two things I would recommend if this is something that you might be facing in your child's school. One, get your kids out of public schools. Like all conservatives, need to revolt and pull their kids out of public schools.
Yeah.
I mean, every state, I know Arizona has a ton of charter and private schools. A lot of states have made progress with school choice. Get your kids out of public schools. Some states provide tax credits for that. Get them out. Cut the legs out from underneath these schools. And then second, if you can't do that, you got to get involved in your local school board. You need to run for school board elections. Get on the school board. Fight this stuff. And, if I had it my way, we'd be able to fire teachers that do stuff like this. Nope, you teach woke ideology. Nope, you're fired. You're done.
Yeah.
If Trump really pushed for what was his? It was the 1776 commission that was wanted to teach history from a pro-America. America is not racist perspective. We need more stuff like that. We need to work on a local level to implement stuff like that. But we have to be able to get rid of bad teachers. I think, Michael, you nailed it, and Grant, with saying that woke ideology, the LGBT agenda, that is a religion. It should be banned from being taught in schools just like other religions are. And if they violate that, fire them. Fire them. Get rid of bad teachers.
Yeah.
They shouldn't exist in our school system, but they are protected over and over again. That's why this teacher will face 0 consequences for what she did. Get your kids out of public schools. That's the best solution.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can't stress enough the strides that we've made in the past year and a half. I know about 2 years ago, if I said the phrase critical race theory, people would have no idea what I was talking about. I said it to some of my liberal friends, and they looked at me like I was a crazy person. Now there are headlines running with that term in them every single day of the week. Left-wing outlets, right-wing outlets, everybody's talking about it, and majority of people aren't too fond of it.
No,
so we've come that far with that stuff. We can, we've come quite a ways fighting back against LGBT propaganda as well. So we just need to continue that surge forward.
I agree. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And it looks like that's about all we have for you today on this episode of WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. If you want to help us out, please go to westernjournal.com/join. Become a subscriber for the Western Journal. You can get exclusive content. And what this does is it really helps us fight back against big tech. They can hit us with all these strikes. They can take away our ad revenue. But in terms of just direct subscription revenue, they cannot take that away from us. And so you are subverting the big tech overlords when you sign up for that.
Absolutely.
And you're helping out getting us paid, which is also a benefit.
Always a
I
plus.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah.
But anything you can give is a bonus. So please consider that. And if you want to keep up with WJ Live, make sure you go to YouTube, youtube.com/WJ Live. Make sure to hit the bell to receive notifications every time there's a new episode. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. You got to do both of those things because YouTube wants to make it really hard for you to get new episodes.
Yes, they do.
And then, you can listen to us anywhere you can find your audio podcasts. And for Grant, for Joey, for me, that's all we have for you today. Thank you so much for joining us on WJ Live.
Welcome back to WJ Live. And I'm joined today by assignment editor Joey Chester, as well as crack reporter Michael Austin.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.